Still says he wants other countries to help open the Strait of Hormuz. Most other countries, at least publicly, not jumping up and down to help. Question is, why? With us now, CNN chief data analyst Harry Etten. So what's a possible reason why these other countries aren't lining up just yet publicly to help with President Trump in Iran?
It's really simple, Mr. Berman. It's really simple. The people in those countries hate the U.S. military action in Iran. What are we talking about here? Okay, net approval rating, U.S. military action in Iran. In Canada, way underwater, minus 27 points. You think that's low? Thank you, Mr. Berman. You think that's low? Take a look here in Japan. Negative 73 points. My goodness gracious, way down there. How about in the UK? We're talking about 34 points underwater. Key U.S. allies, the people in those countries, absolutely despise the U.S. military action in Iran. No wonder the leaders in those countries are, let's just say, a little apprehensive about helping out the U.S.
So compare this to the environment in 2003, and I'm picking that point because that was the beginning of the U.S. intervention war in Iraq. How did people in these countries feel at the beginning of that war compared to now?
Okay, so you see these numbers are quite low. They weren't always this low when it came to U.S. military action in the Middle East, because take a look at this situation. Okay, shift in net approval rating, U.S. military action in Iran now versus in Iraq in 2003. In Canada, way down. We're talking down, get this, 27 points. How about in Japan? Down way down there, down 45 points. How about in the UK? And of course, there was UK involvement in that particular war. Look at that, down 48 points. So what we're seeing is a massive shift when it comes to how the people, our allies, people in those countries, are viewing the U.S. military action in the Middle East. Far less popular this time around. No wonder the leaders in those countries want pretty much absolutely nothing to do with this conflict, because they know there are big electoral consequences if they do, and not good electoral consequences.
What's happening overall with views of America abroad?
Yeah, okay, so you see these numbers, you see these shifts down in terms of how our allies or folks in those countries view U.S. military action in the Middle East. You see how unpopular it is this time around. Canada, Japan, the U.K. And this is just part of a larger picture, Mr. Berman, a larger picture. Favorable view of the U.S. in 2025 versus 2024, of course. Donald Trump being the president in 2025, Joe Biden being the president of the United States in 2024. Look at this. Favorable view of the U.S. down 79% of 24 countries' residents asked. The bottom line is this. The folks overseas are far less likely to view the U.S. favorably, and those chickens, they're coming home to roost in this situation, as there's very little support abroad for the U.S. military action in Iran.
And they have to worry about politics at home, these leaders do. Harry Etten, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Berman.
We defend all these countries, and then do you have any minesweepers? And they say, well, would it be possible for us not to get involved? We spend trillions and trillions of dollars on NATO to defend other countries. And I always said, but if it ever comes time to defend us, they're not going to be there. Many of them would not be there. And we're going to have to start thinking more wisely in this country.
Ashley, as the show was starting, we were talking about the coalition of the willing era from the Bush era versus whatever this is now, the coalition of the vaguely unwilling. What did you see in how the president was talking about allies now?
Well, first of all, I think the coalition of the willing was a different time, just because remember, America was attacked first. So there was a lot of people that were coming up and surrounding and helping us during that time. But I also think what's going to happen to NATO after this, because at least as long as President Trump's there, he's going to get very angry in regards to American dollars going towards NATO. Here's what I think is happening in Europe. First of all, they don't have that many ships to give. I mean, a lot of them do not have ones that are ready to go, especially in places like England and France. But also, they are giving a ton of money and have a very unpopular, populist message that's happening with their support of Ukraine right now. I mean, obviously, that's something you've seen for the last few years in the United States of don't give any more money to Ukraine. That has been starting over the last year. So I think they're, meaning the leaders of Europe, are really fighting their battles back home in regards to their people do not want to get involved in a war that was not started by them.
Maybe that is what we're seeing in the reflection of some of these country responses. We did a roundup. I'm going to start with...
Mas é óbvio que os europeus não vão se meter nisto aqui. Esta guerra aqui não pertence aos europeus. Os europeus só vão se envolver em guerras que, faça alguma coisa alguma forma traga seja de alguma relevância, tipo, que mexe com a sua soberania ou com a sua segurança. Essa guerra aqui, no caso de Israel e Estados Unidos e Irão, não tem nada a ver com a Europa. E toda guerra custa muito dinheiro. E a Europa está numa situação econômica extremamente complicada. Passou por Covid, por a guerra também entre Putin e Ucrânia. Então, está muito desgastado e não tem equipamento, não tem nada para oferecer aos Estados Unidos e a Israel para fazer essas coisas aí. Então, a Europa não pode fazer nada. Felizmente não, ou felizmente também, porque isso, pronto, os combustíveis estão a subir por todo lado na Europa e pronto, quanto mais tempo se passar e a guerra continuar aí e com o estreito do Hormuz continuar fechado, as embarcações petrolíferas não passarem, a Europa vai continuar a sofrer. De todos esses aqui, se calhar é o que mais sofre sempre, mesmo que a guerra seja indireta, é o continente que mais sofre, é a Europa. Então, a Europa não tem nada para dar. Trump aí, Israel, vão ter que fazer essa excursão sozinhos. Pronto. Mas, como o João tinha dito, os aliados não vão se mexer quando os Estados Unidos precisarem deles. E estamos a ver, de facto, é isso também que vimos. Que a Europa não consegue fazer nada. Está de mãos atadas para um lado, porque qualquer tentativa que fizer vai piorar as suas economias. E o que é que vai acontecer? A população vai começar a sair à rua e vai ser pior para esses políticos que vão simplesmente ser depostos e retirados da governança e ir a novas eleições, outra situação caótica política que tem acontecido em quase muitos países aí europeus.
Estonia. Quote, it's a bit rich. Australia, we won't be sending a ship to the Strait of Hormuz. Germany, it is not NATO's war. Diplomacy needs to prevail, that from Italy. Can you talk about the way they have responded, especially since the perception was due to the leverage with tariffs, Trump had a lot of control and leverage?
Well, a lot of that has gone away, first and foremost. But the biggest part is, I mean, you don't ask for help after the fact. I mean, the biggest difference between the coalition of the willing is that, yes, there was an attack, obviously, but President Bush and the Bush administration built this coalition and really for more than a year. Now, this is something that the Trump administration did with Israel's help. And then after the fact, now we're 3 weeks on, is suddenly asking for help. And then
Not
so
just
we don't really
3 weeks
need the
on.
help.
Can I show you this Donald Trump
Sure.
Truth Social post from March 7th? You probably remember this. It was a reply to the UK. He said the UK, our once great ally, maybe the greatest of them all, finally giving serious thought to sending 2 aircraft carriers to the Middle East, right? This was weeks ago. Here's what we're pointing out. Prime Minister Starmer, we don't need them any longer. We don't need people that join wars after we've already won. Here we are weeks later. Sounds like we haven't won if he's now making another round of requests.
It makes it seem like there really wasn't a long-term plan here. I mean, the reality is, again, asking for the allies' help after saying things like that makes it very, very difficult. So, look, the bottom line is the White House and the president have said there's going to be a list of allies who are helping. That will be a pretty short list. I'm not sure who would be on it. But to Ashley's point, there aren't just a ton of extra ships sitting around. So it's more than just air power.
Not that I'm
like who can help.
Right.
Yeah. Well, but he's asking, right?
Yeah,
so obviously
exactly.
there's a need, and that
There's
we're
definitely
trying.
a need.
Yeah,
without a
we're
doubt.
Essa questão dos Estados Unidos na invasão do Iraque com o presidente Bush, aquilo foi uma situação difícil. Tínhamos vindo de um atentado, então os europeus sentiam-se na obrigação de ajudar os Estados Unidos a combater o terrorismo e envolveram-se também lá, mas foi um desastre total, porque provou-se que aquilo eles foram sem se preparar e parece que é isso que estamos a ver agora nessa guerra aqui com o Irão, que foram novamente sem preparo nenhum, sem analisar bem as situações e agora precisam de ajuda e os europeus não conseguem dar essa ajuda. O que é que vai acontecer? A mesma situação no Iraque ou no Afeganistão, em que vai ser um desastre total. Então, às vezes, esses líderes se precipitam e fazem as coisas sem pensar e resultam em milhares de mortes e em vão, o que é triste.
Trying to understand.
Does the Board of Peace have a Navy? Because I saw him with the Board of Peace not that long ago with all of these nations sitting at the building of
Over
peace.
Gaza, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And so those were supposedly our friends. Do any of them have a Navy? I know you may be a Navy expert. I am not. But I will tell you that this war is not popular. And what's happening right now is not popular. And I think that that's why you feel the tension at the White House tightening, because the American people are fed up with paying $5 a gallon for diesel.
Brett, you wrote this thoughtful piece on what the options are now for the United States, that it finds itself in this war, which you're saying you think is probably around the halfway point. Can you give us some sense of what those options are?
A lot of focus there on a naval coalition to come into the Strait of Hormuz. And I've been involved in building coalitions across my career. Coalitions take time to build. Every single country, even our closest allies, they have legal requirements, political requirements, and once you get over those hurdles, you then have to go military to military, rules of engagement. So I would say in the best case, even if we had countries lining up, we're weeks away from having a naval coalition in the Strait of Hormuz. I think that work has to get underway, but there's really no quick fix here. So what I would anticipate over the coming weeks and weeks is the military campaign, the CENTCOM military campaign, which is proceeding methodically day after day, Sarah, kind of taking apart Iran's defense industrial base, their ability to project power. That will continue to go on as this diplomacy goes on in the Straits of Hormuz. But it's going to take time to build a coalition, even in the best case. And as we've seen in the past couple of days, a lot of our allies, because of the treatment by the Trump administration, have been very...
Isso aí, porque agora o que vai acontecer é que se calhar os europeus vão acabar por se envolver, porque o que é que podem fazer? O que podem fazer basicamente ali é manter ali a circulação dos barcos, defender as embarcações que vão passando ali no Estreito de Hormuz, porque sem isso, sem o combustível que vem daí, os preços vão continuar a subir aqui em toda a Europa, então vai ser extremamente complicado estarmos com isto, com essa situação assim. Então, a única solução que eu vejo mesmo aí é basicamente os europeus para o combustível baixar de preço, porque se esse canal continuar fechado e as embarcações de combustível não passarem, o combustível vai continuar a subir. E ao subir, os preços de todos os outros bens vão subir, porque o combustível é que dita todo o preço das coisas, das commodities, tudo é através de transporte. E o transporte só é possível ser realizado através da energia. E a energia principal para o transporte é o combustível. Então, os europeus, por mais que coisa, só que eles também não têm equipamento suficiente, não têm muitas embarcações, não têm muitas armas, não tem muito equipamento para fazer essa defesa aí, a menos que entrem mesmo na guerra e vão contra o Irão ou negociar, o que é mais simples, porque já basta de guerras. Eu acho que o melhor agora é só negociar mesmo, para evitar guerras e mortes à toa, é negociar.
Good morning, everyone. We've got a terror regime that is on the ropes. Major strikes overnight take out more Iranian leaders. First, we have dramatic new CENTCOM video showing that U.S. fighter jets taking off from an aircraft carrier during Operation Epic Fury. That's a 24/7 operation. Iran's ability to spread its radical agenda in the Middle East being dismantled piece by piece. And the IDF announcing that between the Israelis and the U.S. military, they have taken out 2 of that regime's top officials who were still alive as of yesterday. They have been eliminated as of now. Good morning, everybody. I'm Bill Hemmer. With me, Irish Last today here.
Good morning. We're all today, indeed. I'm Dana Perino, and this is America's Newsroom. That development overnight feels very significant, so we're going to get you all caught up. So what's left of Iran's military is now only a shell of its former self, as the United States and Israel continue pounding targets inside the Islamic Republic. And frankly, there's just nowhere to hide. The IDF confirming that a top Iranian official who was really calling the shots there, now killed in an overnight strike, as well as the head of a notorious and awful security force.
Also, major headlines from overnight: drones and rockets targeting the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, Iraq, fired by terrorist groups working in Iraq that are backed by Iran. Now, as the fighting rages on, President Trump saying that the regime's military assets are basically obliterated.
They've been a terror for 47 years. And now, I guess, the world, through the United States, with the help of Israel, is doing what should have been done many years ago. Since the beginning of the conflict, we've struck more than 7,000 targets across Iran. We've achieved a 90% reduction in their ballistic missile launches and a 95% reduction in drone attacks. The missiles are trickling in now at very low levels because they don't have too many missiles left.
Bill, good morning. Major strikes overnight targeting the Iranian capital of Tehran, taking out top official Ali Larijani. Larijani served as the secretary to Iran's Supreme National Security Council, and he was largely seen as the de facto leader in Iran following the opening strikes of Operation Epic Fury. Even on Friday, he was in the streets of Tehran for Quds Day, directly threatening the United States in live TV interviews. He was taken out in one strike. In another strike, a top commander from Iran's IRGC Basij forces, Gholam Reza Soleimani. This was a joint U.S. and Israeli effort on the intelligence level. Fox News has learned from a senior official here, talking about the efforts to go into the Iranian regime leadership, infiltrate it on an intelligence level, and then conduct these strikes to take out these top officials. Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz speaking today about those operations.
U.S. President Trump spoke about the high rate of turnover within Iran's leadership. When morning breaks in Washington, we will update him that the high rate of turnover is continuing and even accelerating following the elimination of 2 of the most senior remaining figures.
Just last hour, Israel launched a new wave of strikes against the Iranian regime. You can see in some of this video released by the IDF over the weekend, they are systematically, alongside American counterparts, destroying the military infrastructure of the Iranians, going target by target. The Iranians are still responding with some ballistic missile fire toward Israel. And overnight, an Iran-backed Iraqi Shia militia targeting the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. You can see some smoke and an explosion rising from the horizon there in the Iraqi capital. There were no injuries reported at that location. In northern Israel overnight, the Iran-backed Lebanese militant group Hezbollah fired rockets over the border toward the northern community of Nahariya. At least 6 people were injured, flames rising from this neighborhood in the northern part of the country. President Trump was asked over the weekend about the possibility of a deal with the Iranian regime.
Now into the 3rd week of this bombing campaign, what would that deal look like? What are the ask that you're making of the government?
They want to make a deal. They're talking to our people. I don't know if they say that to you. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Don't forget, they are a country that for years, I didn't know this until recently, they're a country based on disinformation. And now they're using disinformation plus AI. And that's a terrible situation. That's a terrible situation.
While the primary focus remains on Iran, Israel is still striking the Iran-backed Lebanese militant group Hezbollah. This video here in the aftermath of those strikes in the Dakhla neighborhood of southern Beirut. This is a Hezbollah stronghold where they are launching many of the commands to fire on Israel from. We also know more Israeli ground forces are moving into southern Lebanon to take the fight against Hezbollah. They are supported by tank units along the border, and you can see this daytime video of those IDF ground forces operating there in southern Lebanon. The big news today, though, Ali Larijani, this top Iranian official, taken out overnight in a strike against Tehran.
In 2 weeks, we have decimated them. They have no Navy. They have no Air Force. They have no anti-aircraft weapons. They have no leadership. The leadership is gone. But then they set up a new leadership to go and name a new leader, and that leadership is gone.
That from yesterday afternoon. Let's update you on what we have seen from Sunday afternoon into Monday afternoon. All right, this is a 24-hour snapshot from March 15th to March 16th. What we can see here are confirmed strikes down here in the Persian Gulf, which we've talked about, trying to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. However that comes about, major task, big responsibility. Also reports of explosions, too, again, on the same side, the south side and the southwestern and southern side of Iran. Throughout Tehran, the capital city, on behalf of the Israelis and the American Air Force, a lot of hits hitting Tehran as well. But what has developed also is this second front, okay? Going to move you west now, northern Israel, southern part of Lebanon. This is the ancient city of Tyre. There's a river here called the Litani River, and it runs basically this way, west to east, about 18 miles north of the Israeli border. Going back to 1982, this is a buffer zone, you could argue, that the Israelis have always wanted to protect, to give them separation from the Israelis living in northern Israel and Hezbollah operating in southern Lebanon. And I can show you right here, every blue dot here is a claimed attack by Hezbollah. All right, there's a lot of them right here, and these are IDF positions right here along the border, and you've got a hit here just across the southern border of Israel. So keep an eye on that. You've got a two-front war now with the Israelis. This is the Iranian missile drone attacks that have been targeted specifically at the United Arab Emirates, all right, the UAE, from February 28th, the day the war started, to March 16th. That's an 18-day period. On the graph, you see rather drones in orange. You've got ballistic missiles in yellow. You got cruise missiles in blue. I want to show you something, all right? This is when the war started. That was all the incoming the UAE was taking, all right? 18 days later, look at these lines. And this is what the Pentagon and this is what the president's saying is a mark of true success right now in this war. It's popping. It's not zero, by the way, but it's considerably fewer